Hey everyone, welcome to Season 3, Episode 4 of the Centennial Podcast. And today, we got some topics lined up just before the season opens in a couple nights. We got Search and Destroy. Melnick said that the Sens were searching and destroying, or going to anyway, to find a top center, and that didn't happen. But there's speculation that the Sens are still in the market for a center, so we'll look into that. Young blood, Vitaly Kravstov and Dylan Strome are both on the trade block. The Senators pursue either of these two young forwards to add to their lineup after all the injuries that have happened. Good, bad, or something else completely? We're going to do some Sens season predictions. Finally, crumble or collapse. Are the Sens going to crumble the Leafs in the home opener? Or are they going to collapse under the pressure from a expected playoff team? And we're going to get into those topics right now. Other Matt, we'll start with you. What do you think? Are the Sens still in the market for a center?
I mean, they kind of have to be, right? Logan Shaw is barely in it. He's not an NHL player. He's playing the fourth line. And, you know, that fourth line is important because they go out, bang bodies, try and really get some energy into the play. But I just don't see him being that guy. Chris Tierney at 3 is sad. He's not very good. So if they can find like a 3C that's not going to cost a lot, or a 2C, I mean, it is what it is. If Pinto gets bumped, he's still going to be playing in the NHL. It's important. But those bottom two centers are just not good. So you have to imagine they're looking around. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
No, for sure. Especially because, I don't think, everybody wants Colin White to do well, but I don't think everyone was expecting him to, be a solid, producer this year. And so now him going injured, it's like, okay, there's a guy who there was maybe something there that we had to see, but now he's injured for long term. So now it's like, okay, is Chris Tierney going to fill the role as well as Colin White? Don't really know, but Benet, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with other Matt. I think we need to be in the market for a center. I'm sitting here on Daily Faceoff right now looking at our bottom 6, and with the exception of Alex Fermenton and to a lesser extent Tyler Ennis, it is just a black hole. The bottom 6 is just absolute nothing. Yeah, and I mean, we've got really good, serviceable. Middle 6 players like Nick Paul and Connor Brown are currently sitting in the top 6. And it's like that, Nick Paul and Connor Brown and then a capable center between them is an awesome third line. Yep. And, is the kind of third line that can really help you, that provides real genuine depth of quality down, the middle and the flanks. But they're not second line players. Certainly not on a contending team at least. And so having them so far up in the lineup, is not great for the outlook of the team to start the season. Austin Watson went down with an injury. He's going to miss some time at the start of the year. Obviously, we talked about Colin White already. There's some serious holes in our forward core right now, and I think it would be extremely naive or just irresponsible of the team to not address that in the coming weeks, month. Not sure
days,
what the
even
would be on this. Even days, yeah. I mean, obviously the home opener. Not the home opener. The first game of the season is tomorrow, followed by the home opener. So odds of getting somebody to suit up for either of those games at this point is probably out of the question. But sooner rather than later, you think they've got to make a move because unless if in spite of the statements by Pierre Dorion that they want to be pushing for the playoffs and stuff this year, unless if they kind of under the table are well, if we had another basement year, that wouldn't be the end of the world, which it wouldn't be.
Yeah,
no, yeah.
I think it wouldn't be the end of the world for sure, but I think our fan base, at least what I've seen through different social media platforms, is really hoping that that's not the case. I don't think anyone's saying, oh, I don't want a player like Shane Wright on my team, but I think everybody's kind of saying well, we at least want to have a solid effort for the full 82 games, that the Sens aren't being talked about as being a team that could win the lottery as like a bottom 5 team, right? Like if the Senators finish, I don't know, even like 11th last, like, yeah, like you kind of want to see them really elevate and get out of that bottom tier. But when you don't have Brady signed, when you immediately have injuries that requires your depth players to become your top 6 players, I think that you're not setting yourself up for success out of the gate. And if you're not trading for some sort of help, I mean, we all thought, well, I shouldn't say we all, but many people thought that the Sens would try and put in a claim for Alex Barboulay, but obviously he got claimed by Seattle. So they weren't able to get anybody off the waiver wire. There were a lot of options, and I know not all of them were appealing, but it's just, you kind of need somebody to go in and fill a role. And I don't think Pontus Aberg or Agazino or Sabrin or, even actually Zach Sanford, I was expecting more from him.
Oh man, he's been really bad.
It's not even that he's been bad. He's been invisible. Like, this is a guy who, I mean, had consistency issues. So maybe, hopefully, this is one of the bad periods of like his consistently not really being there. But I'd like to see him just kind of show that he really wants to play and thrive. It's almost like he's just settled on knowing he's getting a roster spot and he's going to be a bottom 6 player. And he's like, I'm not playing with Ryan O'Reilly anymore. I'm going to just kind of coast. That's
the brutal thing, because like he gets a spot and that's it. And one of the other thing that kind of bothers me is like Nick Paul is getting the second line spot just because he's Nick Paul. Alex Vermen, you could make an argument that he was our best forward in the preseason.
Yeah.
And he's getting stuck on the third line with Tyler Ennis, who I do think kind of fits his game, and Chris Tierney.
Yeah, Chris Tierney's just, his lag speed isn't there anymore. And it kind of made me laugh, because I know the coach wants to keep Nick Paul on the wing because that's where he sees him as being the best player for his capabilities. But in my mind, Nick Paul is one of the best defensive forwards, not just in the team, but statistically, analytically, in the league. He's one of the best defensive forwards. So when you have a guy like that, just play him at center. He's played center before on this NHL club. Like, it's not like he played center back in like the AHL. He's played it for the Senators. So he's done it. So if you put him at center on the third line and put Formenton on the second line, Formenton with Pinto, it sounds to me a lot more offensively potent.
Yep. Absolutely.
Anyway, and they still have Connor Brown on the right side to bring that defensive element, so that the 2 rookies aren't really being like hammered or whatever,
But to be fair, like those 3 guys are all on the PK.
That's true, but it's just something that you'd like to see them kind of shore up the depth so it's not an issue, but it is, and that's why we're talking about it. But kind of on a transitional note here, young blood. So Vitaly Kravstov and Dylan Strome are both on the trade block. New York Rangers, I guess Kravstov didn't make their NHL roster, which surprised Rangers fans because apparently he had a great preseason. And Dylan Strome, I guess, is just on the trade block for Chicago. I guess they don't really want him. Not sure what's going on there. Anyway, both players are very young. Kravstov's 21. Strome is 24. And this isn't Ryan Strome, just to make sure some people aren't getting confused. This is the guy who was taken 3rd overall in the McDavid draft. So anyway, both of them are potential trade options. I was going to say that Kravstov has actually refused to report to the AHL team for the Rangers, and so he's being suspended by the club. So I don't think that'll help his trade value. So could you see the Senators looking at either of these guys as depth options? And Benet, what do you think about that?
Well, I think they're going to have to kick tires, and Dorion is going to have to make some calls. It's your due diligence as a GM when you see players of this with this potential of a ceiling who become available. High draft pick guys who haven't quite put it together to the teams they've started with, but who haven't yet been labeled as problematic by guys who bounce around between a few teams at the start of their career and they never really get it going anywhere. And then, the question marks really start to arrive. I don't think that's the case with either of these guys yet. So it's the perfect opportunity to take a flyer on one or both of them. Just looking at Kravstov, I mean, he plays right wing, which we were just saying a moment ago is an area of immediate need for the organization. And if you get a guy who's looking to prove a point after, getting shafted by the team that drafted him and, wants to, fulfill a role on a young team or something, I mean, hell, it seems like a no-brainer. But that being said, is it going to happen? I don't think so. Right. I just don't think a guy like that fits the profile of the team that the Sens are trying to put together, rightly or wrongly.
Now, other Matt, I know you love Dylan Strome, so so why don't you just talk about him?
I mean, it's not that I love Dylan Strome. I think he's underperformed for what he was drafted at, but I definitely see him as being a guy who just needs the right opportunity. We've seen guys that haven't had the right opportunity in some places and then go to Ottawa and succeed. Kyle Turris really comes to mind there. Obviously, it was a different regime, but I think having Dylan Strome and Shane Pinto creating healthy competition for that second line center spot really makes a lot of sense, especially if it's going to cost, not a ton.
Yeah.
If it's a third round pick, which I think it might be a little more, but if I'm just hypothetically saying, if it's a third round pick, I'd do that in a heartbeat. Our center depth stops.
And the Sens have multiple third round picks this year.
So our center depth sucks. Logan Shaw, as I said, should not be in the NHL playing as an NHL center. It doesn't make sense. And going to Kravstov, that's another thing. If you can get him for very little, I think it's just creates healthy competition within the team. But that would put Tyler Ennis on the fourth line and Kravstov goes to the third line, or vice versa. They battle it out. But I think guys like Scott Sabourin, he's a step behind most of the time, and he goes out to fight. He doesn't. I don't see much more than that. I'm looking forward to being happily surprised about it if he does, bring more value to the team. But from what I saw in preseason, it wasn't great, and I'm even surprised he got a spot with the injuries.
Well, I know the biggest knock on Dylan Strome was that he produced a lot of his points on the power play, and obviously Chicago's power play.
Hell, I'll take that. You need a power play guy.
But he was playing with, some top tier talent in Chicago on the power play, which I think was the biggest criticism, that he wasn't responsible really for generating the points. He was a beneficiary of the guys he played with on that power play.
And the Sens have a recent history of trading for guys who have high power play numbers without necessarily taking into account who they were skating with when they put up those numbers. Yeah. And those numbers mysteriously did not materialize here in Ottawa in the absence of those highly talented players.
But I mean, even then, they probably should have put up more than 1 point. I'm just putting that one out there.
Damn, we're really dunking on Mans today. Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say that with Dylan Strome, though, I could see him playing well between Formanton and Ennis. Like, that would be a speedy third line.
Yep,
I think. Yeah, I mean, it would look nicer than Tierney in the middle, but I digress. We'll go to the next topic here: the good, bad, or something completely different. Sens season predictions. So, where do you guys think the Sens are going to end up this year? Other Matt, we'll start with you. Tough one, eh?
If Brady Tkachuk isn't signed, I'm gonna say bottom 5.
Damn.
Yeah.
So no faith in the team without Tkachuk.
I think he brings a lot of heart to this team. And I mean, there's obviously other factors. I think our fourth line is crap. Our D, even playing with, the guys that we do prefer isn't great. It's like those guys would need to take sizable jumps to make our D, even like top 20 in the league. Our pro scouting, if we wanted to bring in players, isn't good. There are a lot of factors. It's just it sucks not having Brady, because obviously we all know he's kind of the face of the franchise, and they've built around his identity. Go hit people, go get shots on net, go score goals, go do all this, that, and the other thing, but do a rough and tumble. And they've really like cordoned off this section for like skilled players. You could have a fourth line of skilled guys that could go hit, but that's not what we're seeing now.
Formanton and Batherson are like that. Like, they're both skill guys.
They're not on the fourth line though.
No, for sure. I'm saying that they hit, right?
Yeah,
so you can
absolutely.
So I was kind of just adding to your point. Like, you can have fourth line guys that have skill as long as they can muscle their way too.
Yeah.
The one thing I will touch on, sorry for the pro scouting, Nick Holden and Zach Sanford. I know Zach Sanford's been a bit invisible, like we talked about earlier, but they analytically, Zach Sanford was a good defensive player, and Nick Holden was also a good defensive player. And I know people have kind of hated on Sens management and the pro scouting for getting these guys who were analytically like, oof. But, here they go and get two guys, and they're actually analytically not bad. So that's kind of at least encouraging. Even if I don't have full faith in the pro scouting, it's a step anyway. And Nick Holden looked good.
I think a broken clock can be right twice a day.
Twice in off season, it worked.
And, look how many trades there have been. Look how many signings there have been. I mean, I need consistency, not hitting doubles and then getting then striking out
sure.
18 times.
Yeah, totally.
So I do really like the Holden pickup. It'd be kind of funny if it wasn't even like they targeted him. They were like, "We'll give you Nick Holden." He's like, "Yeah, fine, whatever." So it's going to be an interesting season. But like, I foresee them in the bottom 10, and we'll get a good draft pick. It's going to be great.
And then we'll draft the Tyler Boucher of 2022.
And then I'll be like, unbelievable.
All right, Benet, what do you got?
Going into last season at this time, I felt pretty confident. I felt that the team was starting to turn the corner. I remember saying that, this team, is much better than the team was last year, which, it did look like that on paper, but then we had that miserable start to last season, and it just led to a lot of angst and hand wringing and stuff. I do not feel confident in this team going into this season like I did last year, and I don't know if that means that last year I got burned and now my expectations are suitably lowered, or if this team is actually worse on paper than it was last year. Certainly in the absence of Brady, it's worse on paper. And, that kind of pivoting to what other Matt was saying, there's too many question marks over too many aspects of this team for us to harbor any serious playoff aspirations. And I absolutely agree. We're not a playoff team this year unless something drastically changes. And I think that we'll be a bottom 10 team. I don't think we'll be the worst team in our division. I think Detroit or Buffalo are, I think clearly worse teams. But we will certainly not be pushing for a playoff spot. And, for all the reasons we've touched on already, our forward depth sucks at this particular moment, especially with Brady out of the lineup to start the season. The defense looks vulnerable, even on a good night. Holden has helped. I really liked that pickup for all the reasons you said. If MDZ, Michael Del Zotto, gets dropped within the first couple of weeks and Brandstrom comes in as a replacement, we might see some better defensive outcomes. But if it's Michael Del Zotto that suits up in the bottom pairing on opening night, I think we're just asking for a world of hurt. Goaltending, again, remains the biggest question mark. It was the team's black hole last year. We had an .895 save percentage over the course of the season against the league average of, .905 or something. That being said, kind of turning over to the positives, our goaltending can hardly be worse than it was last year.
Yeah.
And Matt Murray is coming into this season with a much shorter leash than he was given last year. I think people know, DJ and Dorian and everyone knows how good Gustafsson can be now. They've seen some good play out of Merlainen. They have Forsberg like a capable backup. I think that
Matt Sogard as well.
Yeah, I think that if Murray has a tire fire first couple weeks of the season like he did last year, he's going to find himself on the bench, unlike last year where they were letting him try and play through it. So that could be good or bad. It's like either Murray bounces back and has even a league average season would be a big improvement over last year. And let's say he doesn't, well, then I think this time they're not going to mess around as much and they're just going to hand the crease over to somebody else.
Right.
I think our power play could be better this year. I think we're going to see improvement from Stützle. We're going to see, another, player with offensive gifts and Pinto, coming into the team who might get some power play minutes. I think, Norris has looked really good in preseason. He's going to still be on the power play. Batherson had a really strong second half last year. I think our power play could be better. And, that would be a big help as well. I think, ultimately, which I guess is how rebuilds tend to go, we're banking on growth from within at this point. We haven't made any significant additions in the offseason, and we probably aren't going to make any significant additions down the road. We're not a team that typically does that. This is essentially the core they're going to try and make a run with.
In before they trade for Eichel, like after we record this.
Yeah. If that happens, we will do something crazy on a live stream or something. But it's like this is not a team that tends to swing for the fences with big moves or something. This is probably the core they intend to compete with. Is it a good enough core? The jury is out on that one. But I think whatever growth we see from them in this season, maybe next season, will determine whether they think it's viable.
Right. Yeah.
I kind of want to ask something.
Go for it. What's up?
Would you sign Brady to a bridge and then trade him to Buffalo for Jack Eichel?
No.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you, Matt?
Okay. Man. So, okay. People who have talked to me about this subject personally know that I'm not against trading for Jack Eichel. I think that whatever Jack Eichel gets the surgery that he wants to get, I think he definitely is capable of returning to form of the player that he was, as early as 2 seasons ago, or as recent as 2 seasons ago, I should say. He's a very, very, very skilled player. Now, the issue I have with talking about any sort of Tkachuk trade, especially for Eichel, is I would only trade for Eichel if Brady Tkachuk is in the locker room. Now, the reason why I say that, I think that Brady Tkachuk has a very strong personality, very strong leadership capabilities, and a lot of charisma. If you have a guy like that in the room, the attention is not on Jack Eichel. The attention is on Brady Tkachuk. Now, if you remove Brady Tkachuk from that locker room and you have Jack Eichel in that locker room, who's the camera going to be on? Who are they going to focus on? Because Shabbat, I think he's definitely a quiet leader, but he's not when you look on the ice, he leads by example of his play, but he doesn't have all this energy that you see just radiating off Tkachuk, and everyone's going to be like, this guy, energy. No, seriously though, it's going to be focused on Jack Eichel again. And if he wasn't happy in Buffalo's market, you think coming to Ottawa's market, where Ottawa fans, we're not a huge market, but Ottawa fans are insanely passionate and very critical. And we've dealt with so much shit over the last 5 years, I mean, there's other events beyond those 5 years, but in just like the last 4 or 5 years, there's just been so much BS that to me, if you're trading, I'm not even going to entertain the idea of trading Tkachuk, but I would not trade Tkachuk for Eichel, and I would not trade Brady Tkachuk, period. While whether he's on bridge, whether he goes long term, no, I just don't even want to entertain it. But I'll let Benet say why he would.
First of all, I want to agree with you on a couple points. I don't think an Eichel trade will happen simply because Eichel's not going to want to be here, and it's really hard to justify giving up major assets in order to acquire a player who, yes, at this particular point in his career and in his contract, he could be traded here against his will. But then what are you getting? A player who doesn't want to be here, who's going to look for an exit sign at the first opportunity? He clearly wants to play in New York or LA or somewhere.
Boston or something.
Boston. Yeah, it's like that's clearly the kind of move he's angling for. And I think if he ended up in Ottawa, it'd just be asking for drama in a couple of years. And that is, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that's because Eichel brings the drama or he's like a guy with an attitude problem. I don't feel that's the case, but just, you have to be realistic. I mean, like, this is a guy who is, when he's healthy, a top 5 center in the league. And, guys like that don't want to play in small markets with, small market problems and small market budgets and small market everything. I mean, like, that's not where they're going to want to be. That's not where they're going to want to showcase their skills. Now, that being said, I think packaging, Brady along with some other serious assets in order to acquire Eichel would solve a lot of problems. Going back to the previous point that I raised, is this team good enough to contend as is in the absence of a major move? I don't think so. I don't think this is a Stanley Cup winning team that we are building right now. It isn't. We don't have the high-end skill. We don't have the depth. We don't have pretty much any of the pieces that you need to have a Stanley Cup contending team. If, in a hypothetical situation, we package Brady with a couple of other pieces, get Eichel, he's out half the season after getting whatever surgery he freaking wants, and then we are a basement team waiting for our top 5 center to start healthy the season after, and then we pick high again this year. That's how you build a contending team. That, trading away, we're talking about the possibility all summer about locking in our second line left wing for an 8x8. Tkachuk is not the best left wing on this team. Putting that kind of money and term into him is risky. And doing it and trading him away to acquire a top 5 center gives us a center depth, hypothetically, of Eichel, Norris, Pinto. That's a Stanley Cup winning center depth. It gives us a top line of Eichel, Stützle, Batherson. That's a Stanley Cup winning top line. It solves a lot of problems in one fell stroke. I would do it. Do I think we're going to do it? No, but I would do it.
Okay.
I think Benet hit a lot of points. Jack Eichel, when healthy, is a top 5 center in the league. He is that top tier talent. I think we do have pieces in place that could be cup winners. I think we do have like that number 1 defenseman, Thomas Chabot. Then there's a lot of question marks. I don't think our goalie's good enough to win a Stanley Cup, and obviously our center depth. Like, what I see is you need a first line center, you need a top like a number 1 defenseman, you need a top goalie.
Yep, that's
how you how you win a cup.
Teams that don't have that don't win cups. It's that simple.
But I mean, you trade for Jack Eichel, and frankly, like, I think Jack Eichel, every single day that this drags on, his value goes down. Mm-hmm. Especially considering Jack Eichel will not play another game for Buffalo, period. Yeah. So I'm saying, like, you could theoretically, and like, is it possible? Maybe, because you could probably just do a straight up 1-for-1 at that point. Like, I think Jack Eichel would be like, I want to go to any other team, I think it's that bad.
Apparently, wasn't it his agent who did say that he would basically facilitate a trade anywhere?
He did. He said he would rather go anywhere.
Yeah.
They stripped him of the captaincy, which is like you don't do. And you very rarely see it. It happened to Dustin Brown in LA, which made sense. He was not their best player, and he probably wasn't the leader that they needed for the time. But it rarely ever happens. And if it does happen, it's not a good look.
Was Joe Thornton also stripped of captaincy?
He was. And so was Patrick Marleau, actually. And now that I think about it, I think Luongo was too.
Yeah, but I think that was a technicality because goalies weren't supposed to be the captain or something.
Well, they can be the captain, it just can't be on their jersey.
Right.
But he put it on his helmet, which was cool. Yeah. All this to say, you don't strip a captain of their captaincy. And with everything that's sort of happened, he's never going back to play there.
No, so, definitely not.
And like, is Buffalo going to say no to a guy like an American player who is drafted 4th overall? Like, pundits love him. He's like that gritty player. And frankly, like, Ottawa's going to not have Eichel for a while. So you're going to be a bargain basement team. And what's great is you end up with a top 5 pick. It's a strong draft at the top 7 or 8 players. You get another top player like that, you're laughing. Do I think it ever happens? No, I don't. But because that's a ballsy move, and that's not in Dorian's wheelhouse.
Right.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Wow, well, that was a debate I wasn't expecting to have tonight. All right, so for my season predictions, you guys both said bottom 10. I was going to be a little more generous, but not too generous. I want to keep my expectations in line. I think if Brady Tkachuk signs early in the season, or the team gets off to a good start, and then he signs and joins the team slightly into that hot start, then I think that they could potentially push for a wild card spot. But I'm very, cautiously optimistic, I guess. But I do think that if Brady Tkachuk doesn't sign and the team comes out of the gate struggling, I know the team said today that a bunch of players are dealing with colds, and Matt Murray was one of them, and he had a strong preseason. So for him to now be sick and potentially not starting on Thursday is a little concerning, because while I don't have faith in him being like an elite, Vezina caliber goalie this year, I do think that he is the starting goalie right now, whether Sens fans want him to be or not. He just is, just because of his experience and how his play was in the preseason. So anyway, I think that they could finish, I want to say, if I'm being optimistic, I think potential bubble team, wildcard team. If I'm being, I guess, more realistic, I think finishing outside of the bottom 10 between 18th to 32nd, I don't think they'll finish 32nd, but maybe as high as 18th. We'll see. It'll really depend on what happens with other teams, right? But we got a few minutes left. Let's move on to the last topic, which is crumble or collapse. Will the Sens crumble the Maple Leafs, or will they collapse? Now, this is kind of good news. I mean, I don't like to ever cheer on injuries, but Matthews won't be there for the home opener or the game on Saturday. Marner, I think, potentially suffered an injury in Leafs practice after a collision with Wayne Simmons. So they might not have Matthews or Marner for the home opener. So what do you think, Benet? Do you think the Sens have a chance at winning their first game of the season against the Leafs?
My guess is that the Sens and Leafs split the back-to-back on Wednesday, Thursday. I think the Leafs take their
It's going to be Thursday, Saturday.
Is it?
Yeah, the Sens don't play tomorrow. It's Thursday, Saturday.
Oh, I thought for sure that you did. Okay.
That's why I was confused when you said tomorrow and Thursday. I was like, wait, hold on a goddamn second. Yeah. And Reddit people, before they listened to the entire thing, would be like, I stopped listening because Benet was wrong.
That
Oh
Benet guy
yeah, no,
again.
you're right. Yeah, tomorrow they play Montreal. Okay, yeah. So anyway, well, it's the second half of
And by
a
they, he
back-to-back.
means Toronto, just
Yeah.
for those listening.
Well, in that case, that changes it. I mean, it's the second half of a back-to-back. It's our first game of the season. We're at home, although that's always dubious when it comes to Toronto games. I think we can win it. Yeah, I would say, how last season Sens Leafs games went was we won the close games, and in the other games we just got blown out. So it was like, we either lost 5-1 or something, or we'd win 6-5.
Did we lose 5-1 in one of those games, or did something else happen, Bennett?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, one of them we came back. Yeah,
all or nothing, baby. Let's go. All right, other Matt, we got a couple minutes left. What do you think? Win or loss on Thursday?
I'm going 2 W's.
Hell yeah, I got good vibes only. I'm going with a couple of dub skis myself here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not Go Sens going, then why are you even Go Sens going?
Everybody's like, yeah, Bennett. God damn it. I mean, Bennett's being realistic. I just think well, I mean, I don't even know if there's a lot of good vibes around the Sens right now. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to be, positive and uplifting.
Damn, so Bennett and I are not. So,
well, I mean, they don't have Hyman. They don't have Matthews. They potentially don't have Marner. Like, they have some guys who I think were more impact players last year who might not be playing. I know they have like Richie, who had, I think, a good showing in the preseason.
Yeah.
And Kasha, and they have some players there that can do some damage. I think Jack Campbell had a strong preseason, so if their goaltender keeps them in it, then I could see the Sens struggling. But I don't know. I think that the Sens could take advantage of the injuries that Toronto has and get a couple of wins to start the season. It'll just honestly depend on Ottawa's own goaltending and how the defense comes together and performs. But on that note, everybody, we're going to be ending off episode 4, season 3. Please go ahead. We're on YouTube now, so please subscribe to us on YouTube. Our producer, the lovely Timon, is going to continue to upload our episodes on YouTube. We did our first YouTube upload last week for last week's episode, so please check that out. And Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. Please go follow us on there. We're on Reddit. You can talk to myself, and I believe Bennett's also in the Sens Discord, so feel free to shoot us a message. And we'll see you all next week, same time, same place.
Go Sens, go!
Go Sens, go!
Let's go.